Hey guys, today we have a scary story for you. If you are scared, better don't listen to it. Don't forget to subscribe, like our channel to support me for more, and share the story with your friends for more stories. Find your cozy spot, and let's go. My name is Alex, and I work the night shift at a 24-hour diner just outside of town. It's one of those old-fashioned places with checkered floors, vinyl booths, and a neon sign that flickers more than it should. The kind of spot that only attracts truckers, night owls, and the occasional lost traveler looking for a cup of coffee and a place to sit for a while. Most nights are slow, and I usually have the same few regulars. A quiet guy who sits at the counter with his newspaper, a group of nurses coming off their shift, and an old man who orders black coffee and never says a word. It's predictable, and honestly, I like it that way. But then, last Thursday, something changed. It was around 2 a.m. when he walked in. I noticed him immediately, not because he looked dangerous or strange, but because he was just off. He was tall, dressed in a dark coat that looked too expensive for a place like this. His hair was neatly combed, his posture was too perfect, and his expression was unreadable. He slid into the booth closest to the window, folding his hands neatly on the table like he was waiting for something. When I walked over, he didn't even glance at the menu. Instead, he looked straight at me and said, "I'll have a coffee, Black." His voice was smooth but emotionless, like he'd rehearsed the words 1,000 times. I nodded, grabbed a cup, and poured him his coffee. When I set it down, he didn't touch it. He just sat there, staring out the window into the empty parking lot. The diner was mostly silent, apart from the low hum of the old radio in the corner. But then, as I turned to leave, he spoke again. "You shouldn't be here alone tonight." His words stopped me in my tracks. "Excuse me?" I asked, half laughing, trying to shake the uneasy feeling creeping up my spine. He turned his head slightly toward me, just enough for me to see his face more clearly. His eyes were dark, almost too dark, and there was something unsettling in the way he looked at me, like he knew something I didn't. "I mean it," he said. "Lock the doors. Don't let anyone else in." My stomach twisted. I dealt with my fair share of weird customers, but something about this man made my skin crawl. I forced a chuckle. "Look, sir, we're open 24 hours. I can't just..." He held up a hand, silencing me. Then he reached into his coat and pulled out a $50 bill, sliding it across the table. "For the coffee," he said, his voice eerily calm. "And for your trouble." I hesitated, glancing around the empty diner. For the first time that night, I realized just how quiet it was. He stood up then, buttoning his coat with slow, deliberate movements. "If you won't lock the doors," he said, "then at least be careful." And with that, he walked out into the night. I stood there for a long moment, heart pounding. I told myself he was just some eccentric guy trying to scare me for fun. But the way he spoke, the way he looked at me, I couldn't shake the feeling that he knew something. I went back behind the counter, trying to distract myself by cleaning up. The minutes dragged on, the fluorescent lights humming above me the only sound. Then, at exactly 3:07 a.m., the bell over the door jingled. I looked up, expecting to see another late-night customer, but there was no one there. The door was wide open, swinging slightly as if someone had just walked through. A cold breeze drifted in, sending a chill through me. I stepped out from behind the counter, heart pounding. "Hello?" I called out. Silence. I walked toward the door and peered outside. The parking lot was empty. The road beyond it stretched into darkness, nothing but endless trees on either side. Then, just as I was about to turn back, I saw it. Movement in the distance. A tall, shadowy figure standing just beyond the reach of the diner's neon lights. It wasn't the man from earlier. This figure was taller, its limbs just a little too long, its posture unnatural. And it was staring at me. I stumbled backward, my breath catching in my throat. My instincts screamed at me to lock the door, To turn off the lights, to pretend I wasn't there. So that's exactly what I did. I slammed the door shut, locked it, and ran to the back room, my hands shaking as I turned off the main lights. I crouched behind the counter, barely breathing, listening to the silence. For what felt like forever, nothing happened. Then, just as I started to think I had imagined it, there was a sound, a slow, deliberate tap on the window. I didn't look. I didn't move. I just squeezed my eyes shut and prayed that whatever was out there would leave. Eventually, after what felt like hours, the tapping stopped. When I finally gathered the courage to peek outside, the figure was gone. The parking lot was empty again. I didn't finish my shift that night. I called my manager, told him I was sick, and left as soon as the sun came up. I haven't seen the man in the dark coat since, but sometimes, late at night, I think about what he said, and I wonder if he saved my life.